For decades, we've been told UFO disclosure is coming. Congress holds hearings, whistleblowers come forward, documents get declassified. But disclosure of what exactly? Because depending on who you talk to in the government, military intelligence, and even in the scientific community, UFO disclosure means something completely different to each and every person. Some saying we're dealing with extraterrestrial visitors from distant star systems. Others claim that we're facing interdimensional entities that ancient texts call angels and demons. Some are suggesting there's a breakaway human civilization with technology decades beyond what the public knows. And then there are those who believe something has been here all along, hidden in plain sight. Hello and welcome to this episode of Mysteries with a History. We have a lot to cover today, so let me bring in my co-host, Jimmy Church of Fade to Black Radio. Jimmy, happy
Wow.
Thursday. It's been too long.
Yeah. We took a couple of weeks off, didn't we?
We
We took
did.
a couple of weeks off, but I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. How about yourself? You good? You good?
Oh,
You
yeah.
solid? You solid?
As solid as I can get.
You're as solid as you can get. Hello everybody. How you doing? What brought this on? I know I ask you this every show, but this is it's kind of a departure for us. Yeah, it isn't well, we always talk about this stuff, but I mean, we jump into cases and but this is so current. What brought this on with you?
I think it really had to do with the latest statements given by Eric Davis. He is being in James Fox's new movie, and he says, hey, if Donald Trump signs a piece of paper, an executive order, I'll spill my guts out. I'll tell everyone anything that they want to know. And I thought to myself, and I sat back and I said, okay, who else in the public eye knows about these kinds of things that want to talk about it? Who are the real players here? And also, how are they going to define disclosure in their own words? Because not only has Eric Davis come forward, but even if we look at Marjorie Greene, one of the US representatives, she says, nah, aliens are demons, right? And we've heard that from Congress a few different times. So we're getting all these different answers, all these different theories as well. I thought it would be really important to cover that in today's episode.
What's your definition of disclosure? I've never asked you that.
How many years have we been doing this, Jimmy?
Yeah,
You're right.
I've
Only
never
ever
asked you that.
asked.
What's your definition of disclosure?
I will say it's been changing. It's been changing over the last few years. But I think right now, in this moment, disclosure is catastrophic disclosure. Like that's what it is for me at this rate. Like just like this huge mass sighting, a global mass sighting at this day and age, that's disclosure to me. What about yourself?
I've evolved through that too as well. I remember I used to have this attitude because I'd seen so many things and experienced so much stuff that personally I didn't need disclosure, right? Air quotes. And that I was comfortable with where I was with it. And I said that um at a conference, and there was I was on stage and there was probably 2,000 people in the audience. It was packed. And I said that to the crowd, Christina. I said, I don't need disclosure. I've got my own, and it the boos were so loud and I was so uncomfortable. And then I had to kind of change a little bit, morph into something else, and understand and have the empathy of where those boos were coming from. They weren't booing me; they were booing the suggestion of, "Nah, we don't need disclosure," because disclosure to so many, Christina, to those that have been ridiculed and teased or that feel uncomfortable talking about it at home with their husbands or wives or children or coworkers or friends, the only way that they can enter into a safe space about this subject is having the announcement from the Oval Office, right? That we are not alone. And so they could stand tall and go, see, this is what I'm talking about. So to so many, your definition of disclosure and mine, and uh, on the big scale, on the big stage, That's not disclosure. Disclosure to so many is what they need. They need an official statement from those that represent us. And anything short of that is not disclosure. You know, when I talk about things that I've seen, well, so is everybody else. And you go outside and you see a flying saucer in the sky. Is that disclosure? No, that is something that you have seen. That's it. Disclosure is something else altogether to millions and millions and millions of people. So I think it's a little self-serving, to make the say, well, I don't need disclosure. It's already here. No, it's not. To so many, they need the big moment. That's what they're waiting for, and that to me is disclosure. Disclosure is when the official announcement comes from the Oval Office, not from Putin, right? Not from China, not from Great Britain, great countries. It's got to be from the Oval Office, and when that moment comes, that'll be disclosure. And I'll debate that with anybody. That's what most people expect and are waiting for.
I see the logic there and the way that things have been handled mainly over the last few years. A lot of people are pointing in that direction of how is the White House going to handle this? How is the Oval Office going to handle this? And that's why people are keeping such a sharp eye on how these congressmen and representatives and those within the government are publicly discussing this. And something that's really taken wings very far is when JD Vance mentioned on Pod Force One just a few days ago his thoughts and ideas on UFOs and aliens, that how one person can see an alien, another person can see a demon or an angel. And then Marjorie Green said something along those lines. People are really watching out for those that have so much power discussing these kinds of topics and either agreeing with them or laughing at their face or in their face, excuse me.
Yeah, well, Representative Lauren Boebert out of Colorado, a Republican. I'm not a political person, but just to be clear for transparency, she's running for reelection in her district. And her latest campaign strategy is just that. She's focusing on UFOs and disclosure.
But that's nothing
And
new, Jimmy.
what's
During the
that?
2016 elections, Hillary Clinton, Bernie
Yes.
Sanders all said,
Yes.
when I become president, I will disclose
Right.
UFO information. And then here we are in 2025, and no president or even anyone like deeply within Congress has actually given anything substantial about UFOs,
We
except
had
for
that.
maybe Luna in her task force. And even
Sure,
then,
sure. We had Gerald Ford do the same thing. We had Jimmy Carter do the same thing. Of course, we've had
right.
Clinton and Barack Obama on talk shows talking about the subject. But she took it one step further, Boebert. In an email to her constituents in her district, she questioned the existence of aliens and demanded transparency with the government about UFOs. And here's a quote from her email blast. Are you ready? Check this out. Quote, for decades, our government has shrouded the truth about UFOs in a veil of secrecy. Strange crafts have been spotted soaring through the skies, defying the laws of physics, and yet the bureaucrats in Washington act like we are too naive to handle the facts. I say enough is enough. The American people aren't children to be spoon fed half truths or dismissed with vague excuses. We deserve to know what's really going on up there, end quote. That's powerful. And would I say that this is a brand new day? This was kryptonite to anybody running for office before. Right? You didn't bring this stuff up. Dennis Kucinich, his campaign ended when he brought this up in a debate when somebody asked him the question about UFOs. And now we are here with email blasts going out to potential voters in advance of an election about the UFO agenda and what our government knows, and that the government is lying to the American people about UFOs. This is crazy town. I'm so happy for it, but I never thought that a day like this would arrive.
No, it just goes to show how far we've come in this conversation, how the stigma has been removed in many respects. Of course, not all of them. There's still a lot of hesitation. There are still those that can only say so much because of the NDAs that that have been signed. I mean, an example of this would be Dylan Borland during the latest congressional hearing on this. He's like, I can only say so much. David Grush said the exact same thing. And a lot of people that have come forward under oath mentioned time and time again, I can answer a lot of your questions in a closed setting. But because of the NDAs that have been signed, I can only say so much. And while these congressmen and candidates have stated, when I get elected or reelected, I will provide information. Why? And we've heard this for decades at this rate. As you mentioned, Jimmy Carter was one of those people. You've even heard, Bill Clinton, Obama, and a few others.
Ronald Reagan.
Well, he had his own UFO sightings. But the thing is that
Sure.
if they didn't succeed, how is that going to change today? How will these new representatives release that information? It goes to show that these congressmen representatives, they're just filling in a job. Those behind the scenes that are in there for life are the ones that have the real secrets. Now, the question is, will they ever release that information? Well, Hal Puthoff, one person that we might be discussing here today, is one of the players that has a lot of intel, who used to work for Bigelow Aerospace and a few others, mainly within the government and dealing with these kinds of programs. He mentioned during the time he was working for these government programs and Bigelow Aerospace, he stated, we weighed the pros and cons of UFO disclosure. Will it benefit or will it not? And at that time, when he was conducting this, almost as like the investigation, they were leaning more towards the cons, that it was going to overall collapse the economy, ruin the stock market, ruin transportation. And I don't know. Do you think that's the case today in 2025? Do you think it would be detrimental if we
No,
received UFO disclosure?
no, 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 no. The world is ready for it. They are expecting it. There is so much, not only information about UFOs, and we have the media and the other contributions to what is going on, but then you can apply movies and TV and books and shows like this, that the world knows what a UFO is. The world now knows about the size of the universe, Christina. That it isn't a question of are we alone in the universe? The question is how much life is out there. And the numbers represent one thing. It's huge. The numbers that we are talking about. I heard Brian Cox say something yesterday was pretty interesting. I follow Brian Cox, physicist out of England. He's great. He used to play bass in a heavy metal band, so he's pretty cool as a physicist goes. But anyway, I've watched his numbers ratchet up over the last 10 years. He used to say, oh, there's about 50 billion galaxies in the universe. Oh, there's about 100 billion galaxies in the universe. A couple of years later, there's 200 billion galaxies in the universe. He said yesterday that there are 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. 2 trillion. That's what physics, just wrap your mind around how big of a number that really represents and what is inside of each one of those galaxies, stars, and how many planets are around those stars. And when you're reaching out to 2 trillion, and 2 trillion is still a guess. Next year it's going to be 4 trillion galaxies in the universe. That is a numbers game that says there is a lot of life out there. The number is too big for humans to comprehend. But the planet understands now how big the universe is. So bringing up disclosure or we're not alone in the universe is not going to be a surprise. It's not going to shock anybody. It's not going to shock Wall Street. It's not going to shock the military. It's not going to shock the citizens of planet Earth, the Vatican, or anything else that we were warned about, as you just mentioned, over the years. Here we have 3-Eye Atlas zooming through our neighborhood here, which I think it's ET. I do. I don't know what version of ET that is, but I just don't think it's natural. That's my take. But this has overwhelmed social media. This has overwhelmed the news. This is a big, big thing going on. And if it's ET and it just whizzed past us and our sun, nobody freaked out. We just want to know, yes or no. What's going on here? There is a huge general interest in this subject. Now, before I throw this back to you, since the dawn of man, without question, we've had three things in front of us. Three. Who are we? Where do we come from? And are we alone? That's it, right? That's it. And it's just right there. And these are non-trivial questions. They are huge questions. All of them unanswered. And as we get more mature as a human race, our ability to understand these things and comprehend them increases. Right. And we are getting close with science to answering a lot of these things. What is consciousness? Where do we come from? Where do we go after we die? And are we alone in the universe? We're getting really, really close to these answers. And the planet is ready, and nobody is going to be in shock. I say, let's quit messing around, right? Let's get to it.
That would be nice. It would be nice to receive those answers immediately. And who knows, maybe 3i Atlas might give some of that information if it doesn't continue following its trajectory, its path that scientists and astrophysicists are assuming it's going to take. And what's crazy, and I'm just going to touch on this, is that while everyone's always watching the United States because they're usually in the spotlight with these kinds of things, they've released they've released nothing. China got ahead of them, releasing images yesterday, and of course ones from Italy and Spain as well. But that took me aback. I said, US, where are you? You always want to
It's a
race
government
everyone and everything.
shutdown. Right. So that you can hide, sorry about that. You can hide behind whatever it takes to not reveal something. And in this case, it's now the government shutdown. That NASA doesn't have the ability, and Avi Loeb has been complaining about this too as well. I totally get that, but it certainly seems convenient. Doesn't it just seem convenient?
Yeah.
If you've got the data, I'm pretty sure, I don't think I'm wrong on this, posting stuff on social media cost NASA nothing. Nothing. Where's the cost in that? Pop some stuff up on your website. What have you got? What have you found out? Does it line up with what others are seeing and talking about? That's it. You can't hide behind that. It's so frustrating. Now, you brought up something earlier, and which is going to be the major focus of what we're talking about. Those that are in the public eye, those that we know about. You mentioned Hal Puthoff. You mentioned Eric Davis. You've got Lakatsky, Jacques Vallée. You brought up Hal Puthoff. What about Kit Green? What about Lou Elizondo? He certainly dropped out of the spotlight, hasn't he? Stephen Greer is another example. John B. Alexander. How about Oak Shannon? Right? And how about Admiral Thomas Wilson? The two focuses that were right there on the front page of the Eric Davis Wilson document. Right? Now, these are all public names that we know. They're out in front. Do they know stuff? Not conjecture, not hearsay, not metaphor, not second and third hand information. Are they sitting on documents? Have they seen stuff? And have they been there? Out of this list, we do have one of the most important names here is James Lakatsky. Lakatsky says, hey, man, I'm on the craft. Right? Okay. Now you're in the public eye and you are saying this publicly. You've written your books and you're saying that you have done this. Well, where was the craft? Who had it? Where were you? Where did this happen? These are the next steps in all of this. You to have James Grush do what he did, and it was great. It was amazing, right? And but you can point at people like Greer or Elizondo, and look at this stuff and go, okay, look, you're flapping the jaw. Where are the facts? Where are these buildings? Where are the warehouses? Who are the companies? It's time to start naming names. And the reason why I say that, and coming out with the hard facts, this is why I say that. To say that I've signed an NDA, that doesn't hold water anymore. It doesn't. Nobody, Christina, I'm telling you right now, nobody is going to prison or losing job retirement benefits about the UFO subject. It's not going to happen. So don't hide behind an NDA and say that you've signed something. That's not good enough. Now, at this point of the game, it's time to start talking. That's it. That's it. The American people, the world will stand behind you. Nothing will happen. Nothing. And so if somebody says that today, I kind of lose my focus and interest because I don't think that's valid. I don't think that's valid. It's not a workable excuse anymore. The public wants this, the world wants this, and you will have the support of billions of people. So it's time to go. It's
Do
go
you
time.
think, well, Jimmy, do you think David Grush, for instance, has the world behind him?
I do. I absolutely do. I absolutely do. The if anything, if somebody comes forward with concrete, I was the guard at the hangar. This is my job. I was with this detachment in the military. These were the people that I was working with. This is my commanding officer, and these are the dates that I was at this location, and this is what happened. Here's my documents supporting all of this. If you say all of that, you're not going to prison. You're not going to do, you are completely protected. Completely. There's not, why? Because if anything happens to you about the subject of UFOs and a reveal like that, it confirms what you are saying is true. Do you follow what I'm saying? There's just there's no way. How would the government prosecute somebody? Right? A court martial or anything else. And can you imagine that hearing? Right? The government saying he revealed the truth about UFOs. Oh, really? And then you have to have all of the discovery and all of the evidence presented, for this case. It just wouldn't happen. So it's time for the Hal Putoffs of the world. It's time for the David Grushes of the world and the Lakatskys of the world. John B. Alexander, who I know. I know most of the people on the list that I just mentioned here. I know these people, and I know that they're good people, but they, for the most part, but they did their reveals in an era where the public and the military and everything else, there was too much stigma on this, and the threats were there. But this is a brave new world. The public is ready for this, and it's time to get things going. It really is.
I really hope that is the case. And there's still so much more that we need to cover. But first, Moon at Noon, thank you so much for the super chat. It says Disclosure is a bigger game than the Super Bowl. 100% agree. Joe, thank you for that as well. It says, thank you for your daily updates, Christina. Love your attention to detail. Thank you for that. And Michael has a question here. Thank you. It says, could it be a problem seeing aliens as demons? It shows a level of aggression on our part. So when we're looking at this, it's all down to labels. And if we look from ancient times up until present day, labels have shifted and changed, the word has, but not the phenomena altogether. The thing is that it it won't matter until we're facing it right in that moment, how we're going to address the issue. But it can be a little alarming. There can be a level of stigma. It's all down to perspective when we see everything as negative. But the thing is that humans have so much fear in general, especially in the unknown. When we're looking at this topic of UFOs, aliens, ET, interdimensionals, however you want to describe it, the phenomenon, because we don't fully understand it, there is this level of fear and we want to control it. If we look at CE5, for instance, that's a level of attempting to control the phenomena. But Jimmy, if I throw this question on over to you, how do you think you would address this question?
It's everything. It's everything just with a different noun, a different descriptor, a different adjective added to it. The phenomena is the same today as it has been for thousands of years. To even suggest that UFOs weren't flying around, planet Earth a million years ago, or 100,000 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, that this is a modern thing, uh, that's incorrect. That's an impossibility. And again, it's a numbers game. But if you go back throughout history, how would you describe, how would somebody from ancient Egypt or ancient Sumer describe a Corvette, right? How would they describe a car? How would they do that? How would they describe a plane? How would they describe a rocket? How would they describe anything like that? Well, what they had around them back then, angels, demons, spirits, right? That's it. It's just a descriptor. So today we still struggle with the same things. When we see an orb or we see a shadow figure, or we see something in the sky, or we see something come and go, it's very difficult for us to adjust to what that is. Your brain is programmed to see certain things and then apply that, right? Okay, so you briefly see a car, your brain says car. But if you see something in the sky that your brain isn't ready for, what do? And you're going to add a descriptor to that with the best of your ability, with the vocabulary that you have. So angels and demons, ET, Sasquatch, ghosts today, I don't know, but it's the same thing that has been going on for a long time. And I use leprechauns as a really good example. What's a leprechaun? It's a little green man, isn't it? I mean, I'm just saying. And the other thing with threats, David Grush and what happened to him, his medical records, and that is a perfect example of somebody just, I can't imagine going through what he went through, him and his family and everything else, when he just went up, raised his right hand, and said what he knew to Congress, and suddenly his medical records are released. That's not cool. And the public needs to stand behind somebody like that. When that happened, absolutely, there should have been probably some prosecution, somebody coming down onto somewhere on who leaked that information and why. Because if it can be done to him, it could be done to anybody for any reason at all. It doesn't have to be the UFO subject, does it? Right. So we need to stand behind situations like that. I'm not so sure that somebody has been, disappeared or silenced inside of the UFO community, at least publicly, and something that we could put a label on. But I'm not sure that the way that this is so visible now, that moving forward, that is something that we need to be scared of. Somebody needs to be first. Christina, you've got a brand new ship in the harbor with its sails raised, and you have been asked to jump on the crew and sail over the horizon for the first time. You don't know what's there. You don't even know if you're coming back. What about your family, your friends, and everything else? You have to say goodbye to everybody for the last time. Well, you know what? Did that stop the discovery of the planet? Who's going to be first to the moon? Who's going to be first to fly an airplane? These are brave people that go and do that. And we are at the same place right now with the UFO community, the exact same situation. Somebody's got to be first. And here, okay. So, we go through Eric Davis and Lukatsky and Grush and Ballet and Put Off, right? John B. Alexander, Oak Shannon. That's one thing. You know what we need? We need the CEO of a company like Lockheed Skunk Works to just step out and go, okay, enough is enough. This is what we have in our hangar. And we've been doing this for a long time. We
They can only
that
dream.
well, but that's what it takes. We need that first brave enough person to step forward and do this. How much more eyewitness testimony or documents like the Wilson Davis documents, how much more of this do we need to pile up before we go to the hardcore stuff? Like somebody stepping forward and saying, I've been the CEO of General Electric, I was the CEO of TRW, and this is what we did. All right. And here are the documents. Here are the videos. Here is everything pushing this forward. We're out. This is what you need to start moving this forward.
So then my question would be, hasn't, in your perspective, hasn't Hal Puthoff and James Lakatsky done similar things? Or no? That's like a different category.
Well, again, Lakatsky, compelling statements from him in his books, and compelling. Where were you? When were you? Who were you with? And give us the address. Okay. All right. Eyewitness testimony and everything else is fine. Okay. And we need that. It's a very serious component to this, but we need things to go to the next level. We really do. And just like any other explorer and somebody that broke down barriers for humankind in the past, this is where we are today when it comes to disclosure.
I don't think disclosure will be coming from books in particular, especially from people within the government, because from what we know, public information, any person that held an NDA at any point that works for the government, if they were to write a book that's fiction or nonfiction, it has to go through DOPSR, the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review. And all they're doing, all they're checking within a book that's 80 pages or 500 pages is it infringing any secrets? Is it infringing on any NDAs? Now, they're not fact checking. You can write whatever you want if it doesn't infringe on NDA. So that means all these books that have been published that have any information, it's already been cleared by the government. So when we're looking at all these new books coming out, yes, they're exciting. Yes, hopefully we get some good information, but it's nothing that hasn't already been declassified. And that's, I think that's a bummer. I don't think people like really consider that often when a new book comes out from someone that's like really high up there that has all these security clearances. However, I would like to read a book from David Grush. I do want to read one of those.
Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
How his whole life had changed before and after he came forward after the congressional hearing, and now he's working alongside Eric Burleson and within the government, and how that's panning out. I would like to read that, but everyone else, I'm thinking, DOPSR is really that final nail in the coffin of, we have an idea as to what's going on as a whole. But again, when we're looking at James Lakatsky in particular, we're mentioning him because he has been circulating the news very, very recently, in like the last 2 days or so, stating that the things that they have seen, things that the things they have created are reverse engineered tech. No wings, no fuselage, nothing like that. And that Harry Reid asked very similar questions to Lakatsky, especially when he was working with ATIP and OSAP. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel with DOPSR's hands in everything in particular. But I do, before we still got a few more minutes left. If you're enjoying the show, hit the like button and hype it if you're watching this on mobile as well. And a big thank you to Mark Tasaka. Gosh, it's been so long. How long has it been? Thank you for that super chat. And Jaleel, good to see you. It says, do you believe that nuclear weapons interact with space-time? I also agree about your saying about Lockheed Martin. I think we have technology that would shock everyone. Jimmy, I'll let you answer this one.
That is a great question, and it dovetails nicely into what you just stated. about Dopser. Here's the situation. All right. Let me be very, very, very clear. Okay. If the government and the military stance is that we have not been visited, that there are no crash retrievals, there is no backwards engineering, ET has not been here. Okay. All right. Therefore, anybody that writes anything in any book, says anything publicly, or says anything else, they are either lying or they're telling the truth. And that means the government is either lying or telling the truth. But if the government stance is very clear on this, and the military is very clear, and the NSA is very clear, and the CIA is very clear, and Arrow, right, is very clear, then you can say whatever you want about what you know about ETs, UFOs, and crash retrievals. It's that simple. Put it all out there because the government says it's not real. Okay, so then you're writing fiction. That's it. Dopser is only concerned with sensitive national security issues. All right. So they don't want you out there talking about secret radar technology or satellite technology, things that our adversaries could use and benefit from. That's what that's there for. Dopser's not there for UFOs. Dopser can't censor UFO stuff because if they do, that means it's real. And the government does know about ET and contact and crash retrievals and everything and frozen bodies and biologics. Do you follow the logic here? It's fascinating to me. So Dopser is one thing, and if the government wants to stay on that position, then any whistleblower can say whatever they want. It's that simple. There isn't an NDA out there, Christina. I'm telling you right now, there is not an NDA that says you cannot talk about ETs, contact, or crash retrievals or UFOs. Doesn't exist. It simply does not exist. We would see those documents. We would see those NDAs. They would be out there and they would be leaked. Do you follow what I'm saying? If you do that and you follow the logic of what I'm saying, you cannot in any way be pissing somebody off or in a criminal position for yourself if the government says this isn't real. And you can't hide behind an NDA anymore because that NDA doesn't mention UFOs. It doesn't. Anybody that says that, and I'm very serious about this, I've signed an NDA. I can't talk about UFOs. Okay, show us the NDA. Show us the NDA where it says you cannot talk about UFOs, ET, contact, crashed retrievals. You can't do that. It doesn't exist.
Well, doesn't that infringe on the NDA itself?
What do you mean?
If you show that you have an NDA and you signed it, doesn't that infringe on the NDA because it breaks down all the things that you can't talk about?
No, you just can't talk about those things.
Well, the thing
why an NDA, a document that you have signed, cannot be made public in a disclosure hearing about a subject like this? Come on. You know, and I'm being very, very, very serious. I'll put Lou Elizondo front and center here. When they did that last hearing, 2 hearings ago, and Lou Elizondo sitting there, and he said, well, you know, I signed an NDA. And I forget the representative who was an attorney said, what NDA? Where is it? Well, it's locked away. Well, that attorney was very insightful. Where is the NDA? Show us that you cannot talk about this. Don't state that you've signed an NDA. Show us the NDA that says you cannot talk about it. I don't want people to hide behind this anymore. Step to the side. Let's let the other whistleblowers and people that know stuff about this subject come forward without fear and speak about these things. The time is now. And we are right on the edge of this. You know, and I've said this so many times. I will fight for this community. I will speak directly about what's going on behalf of this community. There's too much, just like Boebert. I don't agree with Boebert. I don't agree with any politician's statements. But what she wrote in that letter is that the public is not naive. We are not children. This is gone on for long enough. What is happening? We have the right to know. And that's where we are. And I will stand by it. And I will keep my foot on the neck of those that are keeping this from us.
To answer Jalil's question, I've seen a lot of people comment in the past about like nuclear tests and explosions being bad for other dimensions and even space time. But when each star in every galaxy would be doing immeasurable damage, right? Because nuclear fusion, like, I don't believe it would damage other dimensions or even space time, but maybe localized on our planet, it would be raising alien eyebrows, so to speak, the ability that we have to ruin our planet. Like that's how I see it. And that's my answer to your question, Julio. Also, Laura, thank you so much for that super sticker. And Brett, and this is interesting. Have you guys heard anyone talk about the drones overhead here in Missouri around Whiteman Air Force Base, where they house all of the B-2 bombers? And they are out almost every night in a grid like pattern, I'm guessing. Thank you for that super chat. I did not hear about that. Right now, the main focus has been the one seen in Europe and the latest statements that were released by Belgium, also Germany, stating, hey, if you guys see a drone, you can shoot it down. We've never heard that publicly before. So that's really interesting. But the ones in Missouri, I have not heard about. Have you, Jimmy?
I have not. I have not. Oh man. It's not really the subject of what we're talking about right now, but drones themselves, just the idea of what that technology is, whether it's something that you're going to buy off of Amazon, something more commercial and professional, or the military style stuff, drones are here. And the idea behind it, and think about what the military uses are for this, and we see it daily in the news, don't we? It's frightening. But the ability for anybody, an adversary or your next door neighbor, to fly drones over your house and look at your barbecue that's going on in your backyard, that's an intrusion, right? Around military bases, around airports inside of this country, you see that going on. Who is doing it and what is the purpose behind it? And then, of course, we have everything else around the world. And we're talking about, in some cases, where you have got warehouses with thousands of drones in them just waiting to go on a mission. And we have that capability too, the United States. But the other part, and this is for me, it is so paramount and should be moved to the front. If you're an extraterrestrial and advanced civilization out there and you know what's going on here on Earth and where we are with our technology, why wouldn't you hide in a swarm of drones? Right? Right? So everybody's seeing drones, but there's one thing in there that's not a drone, right? That's mimicking a drone. Why wouldn't you do that? We see it all the time in nature. You see that, some camouflage situation. So now we don't know what is and isn't a drone. We certainly saw that over New Jersey. And in the testimony in the last congressional hearing about what was going on out there at Vandenberg with those Boeing contractors, with the glowing, remember the glowing red cube out over the ocean, and what was mentioned about that in that eyewitness testimony. When you see something like that happening, what do you do with that? How do you process that? New Jersey, Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, different airports around the world being shut down because of drone incursions. Well, we're being told they're drones, but how do we not know that there's something else?
Right, because none of them have been collected or shot down.
It's a very strange, and don't forget about what flew over the United States 4 years ago, right? The Chinese weather balloon. and the other objects that were shot down with missiles from fighters over Canada. And we were still, to this day, we were not told what we shot down. Yeah, it's important enough to shoot down, but it's not important enough to collect, photograph, and announce to the public what you were shooting down with missiles.
That's
Very
right. We only
strange,
got
isn't
one
it?
image, and it was of a weather balloon, actually, that
Yeah.
they were pulling out of the water. But you're right. The other ones, we didn't get any information. It was put in the back burner, never to be discussed again. And that's what the media and those were hoping for. And that exact same blueprint happened with Roswell.
Yeah. And you would think that the public, and not enough analysis has gone into this from just average people when you about Roswell in general. That was announced. That was a press release prepared by the Roswell Army Airfield nuclear facility, the only nuclear facility, weapons facility on planet Earth at that time. Very secretive. They did the press release. A press release went out and it made the front page. The next day, as we all know, it turned out to be a weather balloon, allegedly, right? And the ability to get a method of operation together on how to do a cover up like this was officially put into place. Nobody talks about that today. Nobody talks about that kind of control of information. And it happened right there. It's such an interesting part of this. And where we are today with the headlines and Three Eye Atlas and drones and congressional testimony, Boebert's letter to her constituents, the other statements that Burchett and Burleson and others, they're not the only ones. Both sides of the aisle. It's not a red or blue thing. This is a citizen Earth thing. It's it's paramount, and I think we're in a safe zone today to now start talking about these things. So yeah, I stand by it. I think that it's time for everybody to put up or shut up, just like Boebert has said, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and others have all said the same thing. So I'm with everybody on this. We need addresses, we need names. It's time to start speaking the truth to not only the American people but the rest of the world.
That's definitely what we all want. And Old Soldier, thank you so much for that super sticker, and Jaleel as well. I think only a small portion of UFOs are ET, the rest are secret government. The real cover up is the free energy technology. What do you guys think? I think in today's age, it would only make sense that these UFOs that we're seeing in the sky, like the Tic Tac, would be human tech, because technically we should be living in the future. We should be having flying cars at this point. And people in the 60s and 70s assumed that we would by the year 2000. If anything, we're very behind technologically. We were booming in the 70s and 80s like crazy, and then it just stopped. So I think in today's age, it only makes sense, especially with the latest statements that were stated by Ross Coulter on News Nation. And he got a lot of heat for it when he said that the Tic Tac is Lockheed Martin, from the anonymous sources that he got, sources that he can't talk about publicly. Everyone was freaking out. They said, no way, it's definitely alien. I think in this year, 2025, compared to 2004, we should have tech like that, but it should be made public. We should know about this. And so that's where the secrets are, where the disappointment is, I think, for many people. And it's also very convoluted as to what we're seeing now. But the thing is that oil is the key. The oil and gas business, everything runs on that. The whole world runs on oil and gas. We can't have a version of free energy. We can't run on things like hydrogen, even though there have been cars that are able to run on that kind of energy. But it never makes it to the public, like for public consumption. So at the very, very end of the day, everything is related to greed. That's what it boils down to. Yes, oil and gas, but below that, the bigger picture is greed behind all of it. And it's disappointing.
It's frustrating, but it's not good enough to keep this information from the world.
It's not,
It's
but
it's
it
it's it's it's
is.
it's simply well,
It's
in the
how it is.
old days, all right. And when I say old days, I'm just talking about 20 years ago, right?
The old
But
days.
it's not good enough for everybody now. Free energy and the petrodollar and what drives economies. Let all of that go. That's fine. If that just tell us. Just tell it. Okay, we've been sitting on this, and it's because of the free energy thing, and we didn't want to upset the world, but this is what is going on. We need to keep. We have too many planes, trains, automobiles, and Harley Davidsons that run on gas. Gas is not going anywhere. We need oil, but we're just letting everybody know. This is why we were hiding it. You know what? Coming out and telling the truth is maybe the best thing to do. Right now, they need to rip that Band-Aid off.
The truth will
And
set you free,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it is. Remember what your parents used to say, Christina, did you take the cookies? Did you get into the cookie jar? No, just tell us the truth and it'll be all right. Just tell us the truth. And you hear that enough, and eventually you break down and go, okay, all right, I took the cookies.
And
And
then
then
you
your
get
mom says,
punished.
you're grounded for 6 months. Yeah. You said everything would be fine. Well, if they rip off that Band-Aid and they do move forward with this, there's a part of this planet that's going to be relieved. You came forward and told the truth. And then there are those whose families have gone hungry because fields couldn't be farmed, right? Schools couldn't be heated. And whatever it is that you held that back from the world, yeah, there's going to be some angry people out there. But at some point, this is going to happen. Whether it happens tomorrow, next week, next year, this is going to happen. That's it. You cannot stop this. Three Eye Atlas, what if Three Eye Atlas pumped the brakes right now and made a U-turn? What if Three Eye Atlas right now pumped the brakes and made a U-turn and started coming back to Earth? Somebody's got splaining to do, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you follow what that's what I'm, this is going to happen sooner or later. All right. It's just time to start talking about this and get it out. We can handle the truth. We can. We want it. It's really that simple. Christina, thank you so much. What another fantastic, amazing show. Just, and it's a good departure from us to jump into these subjects. And also, I'll say this to everybody listening. I totally get it. We are all here for our own deeply personal reasons. You're listening to this show today because you're interested in the subject, but something brought you here. Around this community, and this community is no different than any other community. We have different ideas, different opinions, different theories, all of that. We are all different. But what we need to do is get together and discuss every single side of the conversation. That's it. Let's learn from each other. Let's consider what others have said. Not only eyewitness testimony, but friends, neighbors, people that have had their experiences. They may not line up with yours or how to move forward or even what your definition of disclosure is. That part doesn't matter. We need to stand strong and be together as a community and put everything on the table so we can all figure this out together. So thank you so much. Tonight on Fade to Black, it's an AMA. I knew you were getting ready to ask. You were getting ready to ask. I was reading your mind. AMA, AJA, Ask Me Anything tonight on the show. I'll see everybody there. But for now, all I've got is Gobekli Tepe. I'll talk to you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button right down below and subscribe if you haven't already to be informed on all of the latest UFO news updates. A big thank you to everyone catching this live. We've missed a few weeks of Mysteries with a History, so I appreciate all of you guys being here. For all the super chats, super stickers, YouTube members, Patreon members, and of course, all of my amazing moderators. You know I can't do this show without you. That is it for today. I will see you again next time. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. enjoyed today's show, hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit the notification bell as I do daily UFO news and updates. Fresh UAP stories, government disclosures, and breaking developments land here every single day.